Parental Leave and Employment Protection 6 months paid leave amendment bill, third reading.
Mr Speaker.
Sue Moroney.
I move that the Parental Leave and Employment Protection 6 months paid leave amendment bill be now read a third time. Mr Speaker, I thought I would never ever get to say those words, because what a wild ride this has been. What a wild ride this has been. This bill was pulled from the ballot almost 3 years ago, in April 2012. Actually, it was just the Thursday before Easter. I recall it very well because a lot has happened since then. Can I, at the outset, thank all of the parties who have contributed to making sure that this bill did in fact get to its third reading. I want to thank the Green Party, New Zealand First, the Māori Party, United Future and Mana when they were in Parliament for ensuring that these families of newborn babies had their issue debated in our Parliament, because it is only because of the support of those parties that we got to the point where we are. But I want to reserve my greatest thanks and gratitude to my Labour colleagues, because it is the Labour Party that had the courage and, yes, Mr Key, the guts to stand up for families when no one else would. It was my Labour colleagues who, at the height of a global financial crisis, understood that this was where the brighter future really did lie for New Zealand. It was my Labour colleagues who, despite the fact that the government was running a scare agenda of saying that nothing could be spent on anything positive, that actually decided to turn the tables and trust New Zealanders' instincts and say, yes, New Zealanders will back a positive initiative that will make a real difference. And did they ever, Mr Speaker? Because New Zealanders got this, and they were able to demonstrate that it is the Labour Party that is completely in tune with the thinking of decent, hard-working New Zealanders. Because despite the fact that the Minister of Finance at the time overinflated the bill and said it was going to cost $500 million and tried to frighten the New Zealand public into not putting families first and not supporting children in this way, it backfired. Because the New Zealand public sensed that the Minister of Finance was exaggerating. They knew he was wrong, and they knew in their hearts that this was the right thing to do. The New Zealand public was in tune with the New Zealand Labour Party, and the New Zealand Labour Party was in tune with the New Zealand public. We know this because there were a couple of polls that were conducted, and I imagine that the National Party did more than a couple of polls. I think they were polling regularly on this issue. It's the only reason that they have actually capitulated on this, because they know of the public support. So when TV1 went out and surveyed about 1,000 New Zealanders and said it's going to cost $500 million, do you want it or not? 65% of respondents said yeah. Even at that exaggerated level, yes they did. And the members opposite still don't believe it, but they said 65% wanted paid parental leave extended to 26 weeks, despite the fact that the government was exaggerating the cost of it and that they threatened a financial veto against it. So from the get-go, there has been this sort of controversy and that sort of degree of pushback from the National Party opposite, because they didn't trust the public on this, they didn't want to prioritise families, and they just didn't get how important it was. When it came to the Select Committee process, we had almost 4,000 submissions come to the Select Committee on this. That's how strongly people felt about it. And 99.6% of those submissions were in favour of extending 26 weeks paid parental leave to all the families who are currently eligible. So only 0.04% opposed it. 0.04% opposed it. And I remember one of those submissions really well for all the wrong reasons, because Business New Zealand, in its desperation to try and support the national government's opposition to this bill, decided to come and argue in front of the Select Committee that the reason they opposed it is because if women had 6 months away from paid employment, they'd completely forget how to do their jobs and they would need complete retraining. And this was going to be a big imposition on business. It was going to cost them a lot of money, and that is why it should be opposed. Well, look, I think Business New Zealand very soon crawled back into that cave that they'd crawled out of on that occasion, because we had to point out to them, actually, the law as it stands already allows women to have 12 months leave from their jobs, and they come back and they do their jobs quite successfully. So that was the level of desperation from the supporters of the National Party's opposition to extending paid parental leave. That's how desperate it did get. In the Select Committee, the first deception happened on this bill, in this wild ride, because the National Party MPs, faced with seeing the strong support that this bill had and knowing how bad it was going to look for them, decided that they needed to try and turn this around somehow. And so they came to me and they asked for an extension of the time of the paid parental leave bill to stay in Select Committee so that they could have some time to talk their colleagues into supporting it. Well, I took that in good faith, and I probably shouldn't have, because actually a very wise woman told me quite some time ago, never trust a Tory. Never trust a Tory, she said, and I should have remembered that. I forgot it at precisely the wrong moment. And I trusted the government when they promised me that if they extended paid parental leave, it would be done in a bill in my name. That is the commitment they gave me. They lied. They reneged on that commitment.
Order.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. They misled me. They deceived me. They misled and deceived all of the families who were relying on an extension of paid parental leave to 26 weeks. And they laugh about it because they think that's clever. They have played politics with this bill from day one, but they have forgotten, because of their arrogance, that they are in fact playing politics with people's lives. They are playing politics with that very important first few months of a baby's life, and I think it's disgraceful. So, we came to the second reading of the bill when it came out of Select Committee, and there was more drama, because I don't know if people recall this, but the National Party whips made a mistake when they cast the Māori Party vote, and they had the Māori Party vote voting against the bill instead of in favour of it, and that meant that the bill couldn't proceed. And when Peter Sharples came down, when he realised what had happened, and he came down to try and correct the vote, he got taken outside by the National Party whips, and he got taken outside by some of the ministers, and he got bullied into not correcting the vote. It did over time get corrected. But that's part of the interesting political story about this bill. So we moved on. We did eventually get that corrected. We moved on to the committee stages debate. And wow, was that the National Party's finest hour or what? Filibustering a bill that would give 26 weeks paid parental leave to families. Filibustering it in order to try and stop it from going ahead. And in their finest hour, they had Mike Sabin. They put Mike Sabin up to do 4 speeches lecturing New Zealanders on how to raise children. I'm just going to say that again. They had Mike Sabin stand up on 4 occasions to filibuster this bill and lecture New Zealand families on how to raise children properly. Do you feel proud? Does the National Party feel proud about that? Well, I hope that they'll feel proud in the months to come about that particular issue. So, after all of this, what have we achieved? Well, what we have achieved, what Labor and allied parties have achieved, is we have pushed the government into extending paid parental leave to 18 weeks over the course of the next 2 years. And we know we've pushed the government into that because Bill English looked right down the barrel of the TV camera when that bill came out of the ballot, and he said, it's not a priority for us to extend paid parental leave. Even when we are in surplus, we will not extend paid parental leave, and look what's happened. But today the story's got even more interesting, because now they're promising to deliver what my bill does today, but not do it in my name, because they are still playing politics. They have promised they will do it in the bill in their own name. Thank you.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Oh, thank you, Mr